Hey there. Welcome to a new episode of the ArtChains Podcast. Here we talk about art, NFTs, and music on the blockchain. Together, we explore how artists, musicians, and content creators can promote their work and earn in the Web3 space. Thank you so much for joining us and have a nice listen. Alrighty, GM, everybody. I will not spend a lot of time of every one of you. My name is Amir, and I'm also in speakers, and I'm hosting from the ArtChains page today. I wanted to say thank you and welcome to the new episode of ArtChains Spaces. Really happy to have this one because we will be having Rob from Object and yeah, I'm super excited to ask a few questions, ask him a few questions, and discuss the current state of art on chain and so many things. Really happy for that. So we have so many. We're having a lot of friends in the room. We have Fatime, Rosa, Alexander, so many guys, so many friends. So yeah, really happy. Really happy to start the conversation. And we have Rob, and I wanted to ask Rob, how are you doing, my friend? It's been, I've been thinking about inviting you to one of our spaces for a long time, and finally we are here. What's up, GM?
GM, everyone. I'm doing well. I appreciate you asking. How's everyone doing?
Doing amazing, and really happy to have you. So, man, I wanted to really, ask. Maybe you have something to share before I will start with my questions. Maybe some cool updates from your personal side, or maybe from the object side. Please feel free to do so, and we are happy to pin anything from you on top of the space if you have anything.
Yeah, I mean, no updates really to share right now. We're, just head down, really. Just trying to make the platform more efficient, bring in more collectors, bring in more exciting projects, honor the creators that are currently on the platform that have done a ton of great work, and are still doing a ton of great work, now and in the past, and try to honor those creators, and also just like participants of the community that are making Tezos unique. So we're just thinking about all of those things, but also considering how we can expand a pie, expand a circle into other areas, so that it's is fruitful all around for everyone. That's really where my head is at. So it's a my head is there every single day, consistently thinking about how I can do that.
This is where I saw you in trenches. This is where I mean, the first time when I saw you, the first time I met you in some of the art trenches on the blockchain, and it was I started following you a while ago and was really impressed with your passion about supporting artists on different platforms, no matter where, and yeah, so many things that you are doing, and really thank you for that, man. Really appreciate you. And yeah, let's start the conversation because I actually, in case someone doesn't know you, how would you introduce yourself to those people? For example, I meet you for the first time. How would you introduce yourself?
I mean, that's a pretty general question. You have to give me a little bit more context in that, right? Because we could meet anywhere, and I think by just my personality, I'm more like reserved, private, and laid back. So it all depends on the context.
Let's bring more context. I mean, if you meet someone in the art space, especially in the Web3 art space, how would you introduce yourself to those people?
I mean, I think first I sort of just speak about my current role, leading growth and partnerships at Object. Someone that supports artists, and believes in royalties. Yeah, that would sort of be a quick introduction, I guess. Yeah, of myself.
It's a pretty solid one, man. I've been curious, and actually, my bet I don't remember. Have you been an artist yourself, or you're more in in a support side of things? Please share us more about your artistic journey if you had one.
Yeah, prior to well, I'll say this, out of respect for all the artists that I work with, that I've had the opportunity to work with, I would never call myself an artist, because I'm not as dedicated, or yeah, as they are, to it, and really living it and breathing it. But I've always enjoyed art. I can never draw, so I channel my creativity through learning about Photoshop. This was a really long time ago, and taught myself Photoshop, taught myself a little bit of Illustrator. Tried to dabble into After Effects, but keyframes and all those other things were just like beyond me at that point in time. So I just stuck to Photoshop. And then after university, college, I had the opportunity to work with a local team. I have a degree in sport management. And so while working for that team, one of the coaches asked, sort of the staff, if anyone had any experience with Photoshop. And I did, minimal at that point in time. And I said, sure, like why not? Like I'll sort of create graphics. And at that point in time, like in college football, like graphics were a big deal. Like if you had someone that could do graphics, it could help you in recruiting. It can sort of help with marketing, getting the word out for, the team. So I kind of took on that role for that specific team. And at the beginning, the graphics that I were, was creating were completely terrible. Like they were very, very basic. But what I started to do was I started to expose myself to graphics, to art that really spoke to me. And I started to see it from a different lens. I started to become intrigued in the layers of the works, and trying to and then I started to like replicate. I wanted to mimic and replicate, because in doing so I started to learn the tools and really started to get better at making those graphics. And I started to get really good at it. And I was able to transition from that small university to working at Michigan State in 2018 as a assistant graphic designer with the football team. And then I spent a year there, went to another school where I was the graphic designer slash recruiting assistant. And then that led me to becoming the director of content marketing and recruiting at Army West Point around 2019. And then I left 2021, March of 2021. But yeah, so I was doing a mixture of like recruiting, graphics, and during that time at Army West Point, I was taking photography, recording some of the practices, creating you know, uh, reels for social media and content, on top of like managing our socials for the recruiting department. So that was kind of like me channeling my creativity. It was probably the most creative period of my life, to be honest. Um, I dabble with some abstract painting. I probably made like 5, 6 canvases, but I remember I gave two of them away. One I put out in the trash, and like I remember like walking past the trash the next day, it wasn't there. So I'm like, well, that's I guess that's a good sign. Um, but after, yeah, I haven't made anything else after that. I've always gotten the itch to like create something. But I haven't, in a really long time. So that's just kind of my artistic background. And then now I just leave it to the professionals and kind of channel my creativity through them.
Wow, such a Such a story that I personally can resonate with a lot. So, by the way, Nico and Tara, if you have any questions, additional comments, or whatever, please feel free to interrupt because we love interrupt each other. Um, how how and when did you enter the Web3 space? Because it's also, I know it's a very basic question, but for example, when like myself, when I'm listening to interviews with people who are interested about, I'm really really curious about all of those basic things, all of those details, like how this person came here, what were his or her reasons and stuff. So it's very, very interesting. When and how did you came here?
Yeah, so for me, that journey started around like December of 2020. It was kind of like the end of our season while I was at Army West Point. And one of my really good friends at that time, who was a graphic designer for Ohio State, like this dude's work was incredible. He was one of those, like whenever he would share something on like Twitter, it would go viral. And I remember seeing him post about like NFTs around that time, and people were giving him crap for it. And I never understood that. Like it just blew my mind because again, his work would go viral, a lot of positive interactions. And so that caught my attention. And I was kind of like, again, it was the end of the season. We had a bowl game too. So I was kind of like wrapped up in like creating all of that graphics and content for all of that. So I think it was maybe like near the end of that timeline, like December, once that was over, where I started to like dive into like NFTs. And I remember doing research on it, Google search, going on YouTube, and going through like different sort of like content, subscription channels. And um, the initial concept completely made sense to me. But what blew my mind is that artists could be paid royalties past the initial transaction. That completely blew my mind. So then I think around like February, March of 2021, I started to like dive into like the different platforms. I remember seeing like OpenSea, seeing Superware, Nifty Gateway, Maker's Place, some of the other like marketplaces. Um, I didn't necessarily know or have context into like the different wallets, so I wasn't too sure to like dive into that yet. And then seeing Nifty Gateway, I could use my credit card. And then just like visually, the site looked legit. Like I'm a big like visuals person, so it just looked like legit. So I was like, okay, well, um, I guess I'll put my credit card in or put my debit card in, bank card, and if something happens, I can always just call them and cancel it. And I remember purchasing a piece by Jonathan Thunder, I think was the name of the artist, in March of 2021. And then like stalking my bank account, my bank statement for like the next 2 days. And nothing happened. So I was like, okay, I guess this is legit. So April of 2021, I joined Discord and I became very active in the Nifty Gateway Discord. And part of that is because I wanted to learn about every artist, every drop. I wanted to learn about what made the artist special, what credibility and practice they had outside of Web3, accomplishments. And I wanted to learn. I sort of became obsessed with that with every release. So yeah, for like the next 6, 8 months, I was active in the Discord and doing that and sort of like being part of the conversation and doing research. Um, and I think around October of 2021, my then boss, Brian Larson, got hired at Nifty Gateway. And I remember seeing it on the feed and just sending him a message on through DMs and just saying like congrats. like on getting the role. And that's where like he, said like I know of you. I know like, you're part of the community. Like I'm going to expand a team. Would you be interested in potentially joining, Nifty Gateway? And I said, absolutely. Like the role that he sort of described to me is exactly what I was doing every single day for like the last 6, 8 months. And so yeah, I applied and ultimately ended up getting the role, and that was like my start into like Web3, which just completely changed the whole trajectory of my life, to be honest.
I actually wanted to ask this as the next question, and I mean, how did you get a role at your first Web3 brand? But how it went when you started working at Nifty Gateway? What was your like role and job, and for how long you stayed there, and what was your experience in working in a Web3 brand? How you felt about it?
Yeah, so at that point in time, Nifty Gateway didn't have like external collections or projects. It was pretty much like the whatever art was native to the platform. And so they wanted to expand outside, of Nifty Gateway, and allowed, users of Nifty Gateway to purchase external collections. So, collections from other platforms, collections from like OpenSea, and give users the ability to purchase that, with their credit card. So I was part of the market operations team alongside 4 or 5 others that were tasked with, sort of like scouting, other projects or, yeah, things that were happening that were, that was exciting that people wanted to be a part of, whether that's like, art collections that were happening on other platforms or PFP collections, and bringing those on to Nifty Gateway. So I was part of the team that led that initiative, and I was there until I think it was 2023. So I was hired December 6th of 2021, and I think I left Nifty Gateway. Think that was August of 2023, or July of 2023. And the reason I did that was because I took a role at Foundation. So that was the only reason I left, Nifty Gateway.
Man, but how did you get this role, this new role in at Foundation? Did they reach out to you, or how it was?
Ultimately, my boss, then Brian Larson, made the transition over to Foundation, and he was leading the expansion there. And so they had a couple of roles that opened up. He didn't like reach out to me asking me if I wanted the role or anything like that. Um, at that point in time, I felt like with the direction Nifty was headed at, that it felt like it was a good time. I needed like a change of scenery, and so I saw that Foundation had a role open, so I decided to apply for that, and ended up, getting the role. So that was kind of like how I made the transition from Nifty to Foundation.
And you worked there in Foundation on the similar position
Yeah, it
as far as.
was.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for my role at Foundation was a partnerships manager. A lot of it was either producing releases, working with artists, collectors outreach relations, yeah, and supporting releases that were happening on a platform. And I did that until I think it was June of last year. So I was let go. Unfortunately, I was laid off because company restructuring, and they were pivoting as well. So I wasn't part of that team that made the transition over. So
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I also wanted to ask. I believe that I saw some like that you're curating artworks. And I always been curious, and I always actually thought that you were a curator as well. So
Yeah.
when you've been working at those two platforms, have you been doing this or?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll say this: I'm not a curator. I don't consider myself a curator, and I never have. Um, and it's sort of the same outlook that I have with artists. Like I did Photoshop. Yes, I was creative, but out of respect for the artists that I work with, I would never call myself an artist. Also, I think curation in Web3 sort of has a different meaning than it does in general. And so I feel like there was a loss in translation kind of deal where, like, I remember in 2021, like anyone that selected works was sort of seen as a curator, or like collectors who turn into curators because they sort of selected a couple of works, and then it was seen as a curation. But curation has a different context, in general, than it does the way we used it in Web3. And like, I don't see myself as a curator. What I do say is that I love looking at art, and I'm constantly looking at art uh, every single day. I want to be exposed to as much of it as possible to sort of just like refine my eye, but also to learn about myself, learn about what's happening too, and also to just like better serve like collectors and artists as well. So yes, every single day I'm like looking at art. I do love sharing art that I see and catches my attention. And but like, no, I don't consider myself a curator. I just like seeing cool art or art that catches my attention, and I like sharing it.
I believe that many people are curious what who are actually curators in the traditional world. How would you explain that? That's really interesting for many, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave I'll leave this I'll leave this question to some other people, but my interpretation of it is archiving, adding context, to the work, and doing that on a greater scale, having an understanding of the timeline of art history, and then being able to pinpoint sort of parallels between what was, what is, and interpreting the work, in comparison to that entire timeline. I think that's what, you know, curators do or can do, and selecting works is not that. So sometimes I like joke around and call myself like a professional art selector with like three O's or whatever, just to joke around. But I'm not a curator. There are some really amazing curators like Paloma, Greta, some others in the space. Brian is another. Like those are folks that I consider curators, that have that knowledge, context, and experience. I don't consider myself that.
That's a great context actually around it, and I believe that many people will appreciate that because for real, in the Web3, you can be a selector, and yeah, this is how it works. This is how we call. This is what we are calling curation usually. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's I feel
Mhm.
like that's stemming from 2021. I feel like that's stemming from 2021, where the people that were purchasing the art became the tastemakers. So they were calling these folks curators, but really what they were saying is that they're sort of like tastemakers. But I think there's a difference between the two. And so because they were collecting, because they own a punk, because they own every other consensus sort of like collection, they became the tastemakers, and then they started selecting works or selecting artists or selecting things, and that sort of became the end all be all. But we all know like that's not the truth. But that kind of comes with, I don't know, like a byproduct of them having or making the market in a way because they were spending the funds. And so people saw that as like, oh, these are collectors, these are curators. And then we saw that, right? We saw a couple of collectors who ended up creating communities around sort of their collecting and their Web3 branding. And then they created passes. Like that became a big thing too, like a pass into a certain community. And then, like 2022, 2023 timeline, some of those fell off. Some of those communities kind of like fell off, and there's still some around, but I think that became the basis of like curation. But curators will tell you, like, or people that have that sort of context and background, that that's not curation.
But anyways, in my personal opinion, I think it's good that people are doing those things because they are still, helping some creators, some artists to
Yeah.
highlight what they're creating. And many artists are very bad in marketing, and actually, I think it should be like that in some form, because artists should not be marketers; they should be artists. So. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you that probably it's not what curation means in the traditional world. I'm also curious. I remember that after leaving foundation, you started a position at maker's place. Is that
Yeah.
correct? And how it went?
Well, actually, I had some different roles after like foundation. After foundation, I sort of started to do, I started to like broker art. I created Liaison, which, was kind of like I had this idea of it being a digital like art brokerage, and then also like artist management. And so um, to sort of continue the work that I was doing, I saw that as a way to add value to people, to like help like brokering art. And so I was doing that for a couple of months. I also took a role with White Walls, so I was helping them with like artist outreach, relations, and onboarding as well. So I did that for a couple of months, and then I was in conversation with a couple of people, a couple of platforms, and then ultimately found a home with Maker's Place. So that was a 3 month contract, which ended in December, and we sort of extended it for one more month going into January, and then ultimately they ended up just closing Maker's Place. So I was kind of like on my own, again. So that was kind of like the timeline there. So it was a couple of contracted, roles since being laid off from Foundation.
I gotcha. It's very interesting because I'm not sure if I noticed that before, but yeah, now you are with the object team, and again, what was the process? How did they find you, or maybe you found them? And um, what's going on now with your role position on object? What are you doing, and how you feeling being a part of a Tezos community?
Yeah, so the object opportunity I think came about after, the announcement that I made um, with Maker's Place closing up. And I was having conversations, just with multiple parties, people that I know. And that was just an opportunity that came up. And one that I found intriguing and that I was interested in because I like the Tezos community. Art is like the common thread. I feel like art is the focus on Tezos. Like, I feel like the community is not about, it's not about hype. It's not about some of these like other elements that you get elsewhere. Really, art is the focus. So that really spoke to me. And then I looked at Object as a marketplace. I love that you can actually navigate through, the marketplace. Like, I mentioned earlier, I love looking at art. there's some marketplaces where, man, I like doom scrolling. Like I'm one of those that goes to a marketplace and clicks like oldest date because I want to see like the first works that were minted and like consistently go through. I want to filter through by like if it's a one of one or edition. And there's some places that you try to do that and it just like loads and takes its time and you can never get through consistently. But object you can do that and it's really nice, you can easily filter through work, so I really appreciated that. Something else that spoke to me is object is open to all. The way I see object is like art for everyone. I believe art is for everyone, so the openness of the platform allows that to happen. You can purchase art from varying like categories and people from different backgrounds, different parts of the world. So I felt like that really embodies what like Web3 is about. Like um, art is for what everyone. I believe that art should be for everyone and should be accessible to everyone. And I feel like Object, completely exemplifies that. So that spoke to me. And then just sort of having a mutual connection with some of the people, that work at Object and then seeing them throughout the timeline, the space. And so that's why I was interested, in the role. And then, I think it was a couple of weeks we were just going back and forth, finalizing details, and came to a mutual point. And so I decided to take the role, and I think the following week I was at NFT Paris. Then after NFT Paris, it was my first like full week, and yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I love everything that's happening. I think there's a ton of opportunities for artists on Tezos. And right now, I'm just trying to like bang my head every single day on how I can, bring in more collectors, make it a healthier ecosystem, keep art on the forefront, keep the conversation around art, but also think about opportunities outside of our bubble and how I can help expand, beyond the bubble, so that it can grow in a healthy way, but most importantly, do so in a way that keeps the integrity of the chain, right? The integrity of Tezos, because I feel like Tezos is such a fine line. You don't want to like make it feel like this like rigid corporate premium, elevated thing and experience, because it's like, are you trying to become BTC? Are you trying to become, Ethereum? Like those are out there. Like what makes um what makes Tezos great is what makes it great, but it can also like limit it as well. So I feel like I'm like walking that fine line and trying to think about ways to do so in a way that it can grow and become it and make it more healthy, for everyone while keeping the integrity. So that's like kind of like where my head is at right now, and every single day, to be honest.
Man, and when I saw and now again I hear it. When I saw the your photos from NFT Paris, it was like I felt like such shame that we didn't meet. We haven't met. We didn't meet. Pardon.
That's probably
Because
my
yeah.
fault, to be honest. Because I wasn't very vocal about me being there and about going to NFT Paris, because it was a trip that I already had planned before I was hired. So I was just kind of like on my own and doing my own thing, and just being part of the community, rather than I didn't want to go there as like Rob from Object. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just just wanted to go on my own, and yeah, so I wasn't very vocal about it.
Anyways, man, it's great. It's great that you're sharing so many important things uh, that that are highlighting like what's going on the Teslas from the perspective of, to me, to me, just like I mentioned, I met you on the timeline as a guy who been working for a foundation, and I never considered yourself I never considered you as a Tezos guy because like you've been working in different areas, and now it's very interesting to hear the perspective from a person like this about the chain that I really love the most. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
mean,
interesting.
I remember during the first week, I was being very vocal about certain things, and it rubbed people the wrong way, and everyone is like, "Oh, here comes this guy from like ETH trying to turn Tezos into that, or try to make it something that it's not." And that's not what I was trying to do. I was being vocal for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to ruffle feathers. I wanted to get a an idea of where people stood. I wanted to see what side of the line they stood and why. And then I also wanted to get an idea of where the community, where the change stood in general. I wanted to sort of yeah, just kind of understand everything that was happening before I can like come in and like have my opinions about things. Like I've collected on Tezos and have since 2021, but I'll be honest, like my first wallet I completely lost because it was something that I just did casually and then had it on an old computer. And then I've had multiple wallets then, but I was working for ETH marketplaces, so I'm not gonna be like completely vocal about it. But I've always like there's a ton of gray art. I mean, there was a couple of us from Nifty Gateway that would collect on Tezos, and amongst us, we would talk about it. But I just wasn't really vocal about it. But like I said, there's a common thread between like myself and like Tezos and then the ecosystem and the community that I feel like there's definitely understanding there, and it resonates with me. Like the ethos of Tezos just completely resonates with me. So like I care about art. I care about art. And so I'm not a chain maxi. I'm an art maxi. And I respect the hell out of the Tezos ecosystem, the people, all the people within the community that make it what it is, all the people that just keep pushing Tezos forward, and protecting it, right? Because, like I said, it's a very fine line with Tezos. Like, if you go too far one way, you're like, okay, this is not us. If you go far the other complete way, it's like, it's very purist as well, and it may not necessarily help with growth. So it's like a fine line. It's a fine balance, but I respect a lot of the people that have been here for some time and are protecting it, because I think it's worth protecting, so that it doesn't become everything else and dies out.
So many things to write down and to then share. So yeah, thanks for the perspective again. Actually, talking about art, really curious about your personal perspective of how you see the NFT, the crypto art today, and how you see, like, what do you expect from this year and in the next 3 to 5 years, because we all see those a lot of posts and comments about some people are saying that everything is dead, but for example, personally, I'm getting a lot of posts on my timeline where people are saying that they are resurrecting, something is happening, the bull run is coming to NFTs and everything. So what's your take here, because it's always hard to navigate, and of course nobody knows, but your personal perspective is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed for sure. Um, Things have changed. I felt like even collecting behavior has changed. Like I felt like 2021, as we all know, it's like the wild, wild west, right? Like I felt like collecting behavior, people would FOMO into collections and then like do the research and kind of hope that they were right. I felt like we were then forced to slow down in 2022, 2023, where like collectors then um slow down, where they would actually um collect either artists that they knew, or they would do their research first. But ultimately what that did was it created this it made the gap between the 1% and the 99% feel a lot larger. And by that I mean collectors in 2021 felt like, okay, a piece by a certain artist, I'd have to pay like 10 plus, I guess at that point in time, like amount for something that now in 2022 and 2023 I could get for like at a 70%, 80% discount. And so they were taking less risk on purchasing from emerging artists or artists with a smaller audience, because they could get, like collections works from artists, that 1% or the artists with like a larger following or, more established, I guess, market at a fraction of what they, would in 2021. So that made it a lot harder for the emerging artists, for artists with a smaller audience to have their work, bought. And so it created this like weird market dynamic. And it made it, yeah, it just made it a lot harder. I feel like now, you see momentum being picked up, but I feel like it's still not completely balanced in terms of sales. Like, yeah, volume is happening and momentum is happening, but I feel like it's still happening for the upper 50% of the market, and like the area that I care about is like the smaller, to mid tier like artists, because I don't know, that just resonates with me. And also I feel like the more established artists don't necessarily need, my help, or I don't know. That's just kind of like how I feel about it. So yeah, there's definitely more volume, more traction, in terms of like, certain collections, but I still would like to see a ecosystem where the little guys have a chance and have sales and are seeing success, and those collectors, the very few that are collecting a large amount of volume, collect from, those artists that have a smaller audience. So until I see that, I'm not going to say it's a bull. If, whether other people say otherwise, because the collections that are selling, the consensus, collections that people like to get behind because they're part of the, want to be part of the conversation. As long as that's happening, to me, I'm not going to call that a bull. And I'm not going to necessarily be cheering because I know the rest of the market and the other artists who don't have that name or that backing, are hurting for sales. And that's what sort of Web3 was in 2021, right? Like that promise of I can do this on my own. You know, and so until I see that, like a healthier ecosystem where that's happening, to me, I'm not necessarily going to, I don't know, fall for that narrative. I don't know. That's just kind of like my thought process about it.
Many people don't like this question, but I will still ask you because also many people are waiting for this question, for the answer to this question. What sort of advice would you give to younger, to new emerging artists in this space? Maybe a couple of sentences of like maybe do's and don'ts, and yeah, a piece of advice to those who are listening, to those who will be listening the recording.
Yeah.
I know that we're having a lot of young artists, emerging artists, and they would appreciate that for real.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, it would be, connect with the community. Have I think it's so. All right, I'll backtrack. Number one is set expectations. Like have like be realistic about your expectations, coming into this space. I feel like because of the 2021 narrative, people came in with very high expectations, and then they weren't part of that conversation, and then they were completely, upset or just disillusioned with Web3. So manage your expectations would be number one. Number two would be, um, connect with others within the community, artists, collectors, and do so in a genuine way. Don't do that as like, hey, I'm going to reach out to this person in my own best interest. Like actually become one with the community, truly understand it, try to find like-minded people, um, that you can relate to, and really try to be part of, the community, and really understand people, and like just get out there. Like just get out there. I feel like you can you can make your time much more enjoyable if you do that, if you just become one with the community first, without thinking that you could just come here, and try to, like, not necessarily extract value without adding anything to the conversation. But that's exactly how it'll be seen. Like, again, manage your expectation, get out there with the community, go to IRL events, meet people, connect with people in a genuine way. And then the last one, I would probably say, keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. Um, Keep an open mind to changes, to conversations with different people, to the direction that you take, because things can change really fast. Yeah, that's probably the three pieces of advice I would give, to a new artist, or yeah, to a new artist coming to the space.
Absolutely great ones. Really appreciate you for that, and I hope that people will be, who are not listening now, will dig into the recording, or maybe we will cut those three off and post them separately as an audio file or video file. Uh, so actually, we're almost running out of time. We have 9 more minutes, and I would also ask one question. What question do you most often hear from your followers here on X, and how do you respond to that?
Questions? I mean, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of commentary as well. So I can't necessarily pinpoint one. Um, to be honest.
All right, you will pass this one, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, no worries. The last question. It's like probably the weirdest one of today, but and I didn't warn you about this one, but I really wanted to ask something weird and unusual in the very end. So the question is, if you would meet Satoshi Nakamoto, what you would say to him, what you would ask, or whatever.
Wow. That's a great question. What would I ask? Um, to be honest, I probably wouldn't ask anything. I probably would just say thank you. I would just say thank you. I would simply say thank you because of what came from the idea, of their thinking, and the culture that came from that, and everything else that came after it, and where we are today because of it. That's probably it. I would just say thank you. Uh,
Man, I appreciate you. That's a great one. That's a great take here. And guys, we have like 5 more minutes. If anyone has any questions to Rob, please request to speak. Please don't chill. At
I
least
will not
try.
request to speak. I will just interrupt you because
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
sure you were missing it. First of all, Rob, thank you for joining us. Nice to meet you, and thank you for all the valuable information that you shared with the community. Let me just say that if I met Satoshi Nakamoto, I will just ask him, "What is your seed phrase?"
there you go. You're much smarter than me.
That would be the most important because for sure his wallet is very valuable for anyone. About what you've been doing with the object, I've been following all the highlights that you are doing to artists. Amiro already asked you about some tips for new artists, I will ask you something different, if I may. Um, I see that you do a lot of threads with several artists. What can artists do to cut your attention? We have many talented artists on objects. You know it for sure. And how can artists present themselves to you? What is the best way? Thank you.
Mint on object. That's really it. That's where I'm checking every single day. Um, and like, yeah, I like to share threads because I like to share art. And I want to speak to different categories of collectors, of people, and also represent art from different disciplines as well. And sometimes I do it instinctively, like for example, before this, I was checking object. I saw Pop Wonder had a couple of works on there. So I shared a thread with like 5 works of his that I saw, sort of to speak to that crowd. And then as of last week, I started sharing like works of anyone that has minted for the previous week. I'll go through and I'll bookmark works that caught my attention, that were minted during the previous week, and then I'll put it together on a thread and I share it every Monday now. So yeah, just number one, just mint on object, and it'll be on my radar. But with that being said, I like to also say that don't see my threads as like the end all be all. Don't use sort of whether you make it on my thread as like a measuring stick of whether you're good or not, because I don't want to be that. I'm just someone that likes art, enjoys art, and then I just share it because that also like scratches an itch for me too. I wish I could buy it all. If I did, it'd be, yeah. It's a different conversation, but yeah, don't take my thread as like the end all be all. Don't use it as a measuring stick as to like whether you're good or not. Don't feel like you have to appeal to me. I'm no one. And yeah, just continue working and focusing on yourself and your art.
Yes, sure. It was not a measure. It's just
Yeah, I know.
a chance for the artist to be seen by more people. Just at a point. And
Yeah,
back
for
into
sure.
the beginning, when you mentioned that you are not an artist, and it's not fair for the artists, the real artists, to say that you are an artist. I completely see myself on that expression. And about curation, you are also right, and the object give us anyone the opportunity to create a curation, but in fact, as you also mentioned, it's just a selection, because the curation is something more that involves a lot more knowledge in the work than just selecting a few artworks to be there. But thank you very much for your time and for all your inputs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's some people that would argue and say, well, we curate our feed or we curate how we dress every day. Like that's sort of a, curation as well. But again, I think it all depends on the context. What is curation? It's different to different people. So
Rob, guys, sorry for the interruption. Do you
yeah.
have a couple of more minutes
Yes,
to?
please. Yeah. I do. I
Thanks,
do. No worries.
thanks. Max Capacity, you was the first join the speakers panel. GM, how are you doing? And please share your question. Ask your question to Rob. Feel free.
Good
Thank you.
morning. I just wanted to also shout out to Rob because wherever he works, it's better when he works there. Nifty Gateway was better when he worked there, and Foundation was better when he worked there, and Object's going to be better now. So,
Thank you.
but also I
Appreciate
was
that,
gonna,
Max.
also just like I wanted to give you props to your advice for new artists and also your inclusive approach to curation, which you're talking a lot about curation, but some websites we won't mention are like exclusive and won't let you on there, and they call that curation, right? And
Yeah.
but I appreciate your inclusive approach and your disclaimer that just because you didn't promote it doesn't mean it's not valid.
Right. 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 I just felt like I appreciate the nod, but I think it's important to like highlight that to people, because you'd be surprised there are some folks that use it as a measuring stick, like whether they can make it on this exclusive platform, and then they think like, if I make it here, then I'll have a ton of sales and I'll be successful. Or if I make it on the homepage of this specific platform, like this is going to change things. And I've seen artists where they've reached that point and nothing changes. And so that's why I believe you can't use it as the baseline. You have, it's one of those things where like, you appreciate the nod and you appreciate the sort of I'm not going to say accolade or achievement, but you appreciate the opportunity and just realize like, there's still work to be done or there's art to be created. But that's I feel like as long as you focus on or fall in love with the creation, that process of the creation, what happens there afterwards, to sort of be none of your business in a way, because I feel like if you get too caught up in what happens after that, then you'll never, like, I don't know, you won't get that fulfillment from it, and you'll constantly be measuring yourself against the next person or someone's approval. And I feel like as an artist that completely goes against creating or being able to create. It's kind of, so I just had to like throw that and let people know that. Appreciate the nod, Max.
Yeah, so I don't actually have a question except like what are your plans going forward on Object? Because I've been honestly staying away from Tezos for a while, but you being on Object makes me want to mint on Tezos more.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Really, I just want cool shit to happen on Object, uh, and happen on Tezos. And right now, you know, there are some like folks that I've reached out to, and there's the misconception of their first thought is like, oh, I have to lower my prices, to do something on Tezos. What's the other misconception? Oh, they're also concerned about like the longevity of like the chain. And I just feel like there's no truth to both, to either of those points. And so right now, I really just want to work with artists that just want to do cool shit and do it because it feels right. And Tezos just feels right as an avenue to do that and get it out. Really, that's like the artists that we're looking to work with. And then in terms of like Object in general, like my every day, like I said earlier, I'm thinking about how I can, you know, help it grow, how I can bring more collectors to the platform, how I can bring more cool creative like projects on the platform that really get people excited. But there's still that mental model, that a mental shift that needs to happen, so that perceptions the perception changes, and like people are more excited about doing cool shit on Object and on Tezos. And that's really where I'm trying to drive every single day and thinking about how we can do that, and with whom and where. So anyone that has like any crazy ideas or want to do any cool projects, like, before considering going elsewhere, just give one of us, on the Object side or Tesla side, like a heads up. Send me a message. Because that's exactly what we're looking to get behind. And I feel like those are the kind of projects that were done in the past on Tezos that just make it like really cool. So that's where we're trying to get at.
Well, also, my last thing would I just say us mid to low tier artists appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Max. Thank you so much for the questions. We also have Alexander. GMGM, my friend, how are you doing? And what's your take? What's your question to Rob?
GM, GM, actually. So first of all, thank you for the space and thank you for telling about yourself and answering all the questions. I have actually two questions. Like one, I have an idea for the object, but I'm missing some functionality, so I will definitely will DM you for with my ideas. Um,
Please do. I'm all ears with feedback, to be honest. So you'd be surprised. We have a lot of things that we're working through right now. So please do send that feedback. It's welcome.
Yeah, great, thank you. And my question is actually about Object One. If you can tell more about it, what is it exactly? How does it work? Who behind it? And how it's possible to get there? Maybe so. If you can give more details about this project.
Yeah. So Object One is sort of the curatorial branch of Object, and it's ran by Kika Nicole, artist and curator, and I think she would be, the perfect person to sort of reach out to be considered with it, for it. I don't necessarily have my hand in it on a day to day, and don't have any influence there just yet. So I can't necessarily give you more insight into Object One, except for maybe reaching out to her, presenting a project, and I'm sure she can like review it, and consider it for curation.
Yeah, okay. Can I get the journal exactly? Because I'm not sure that I get it right.
Sorry, what are you asking?
If you can link it to the Jumbotron somehow, the right person who I need to contact.
I will
I
do it
can.
right now. I will do it right now. No
Yeah,
worries.
if you could just shoot him her Twitter handle. I can also do that as well.
Yeah, great.
And in the meantime, while you are looking for the people to tag about software features on objects, you have the roadmap object.com where you can see the updates and request some software functions that you want. Everyone is available, is free to go there and leave their suggestions and things that they want to see on object and vote for the ones that you want them to apply. It's
Yeah,
on the comments, the link.
yeah, we actually checked that too. So do please leave feedback there. And like I said, we are working through different functions and action, adding more functions and tooling on the platform. So feedback is welcome.
Great.
Amazing.
Thank you.
And also,
Thank you.
and yeah, Alex, thanks for all the questions. And I also pinned Kika's post so you can click through it and reach out to her. We also have Brett. Brett, GMGM, happy to see you. A long time to see. How are you doing?
GM.
And what's your take?
Oh, I'm doing great. One sec, I gotta wave you guys here. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna show you a second one, and yeah, I'm doing good. Nice to meet you, Rob. It's very cool that you took on a really cool rollover with Object. Um, my question slash contribution to the conversation is around outreach and onboarding. A general question, just what do you find useful or effective when you're trying to onboard and outreach outside? Like, we all know how to market to Twitter, but when you're trying to reach people who have never held crypto, don't even understand Bitcoin, what do you find most effective with that? And secondly, does Object have and or are they willing to create a poster that sort of takes somebody from, hey, you're new, to now you've got a wallet, you're connected, and you have the option of collecting or minting, like something that would actually be like an 11 by 17 printout that someone like myself could put up somewhere specific that they're trying to get people to collect object art? or even just we could go around and put these things up in, like, everyone in all their communities, in coffee shops, community boards, wherever, just to kind of put amongst like concert posters and whatever else gets advertised that way, as just like a full-on bring in more people from outside to this stuff. So those are my two questions for you.
Yeah, I appreciate the questions, Brett. I think your second point, the idea, I mean, I think that's an excellent idea. Do we have that right now? I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's an excellent idea that there's a great opportunity there. I know I just had a conversation earlier with someone about creating educational content as well that helps with onboarding, and having that and creating sort of like a resource as well. So it's already something that's top of mind for us. And then to answer your first question, at least on our end, and then just in general, I think I think meeting people with art first, sort of is the common thread initially, and gets people to understand. I think it's important to meet people where they are first, because if we try to sort of speak our language and explain everything about what is, um, at the beginning it completely blows your mind. As we all know, like, if you have to educate a consumer on a product, you're already going to lose you know half of the audience already. So I think starting the conversation with art is something that it's a common ground. So meeting people where they are, meeting them with art, and having that to lead the conversation, it's a great starter. And then I also think, in addition to that, it's thinking about the context, uh, the environment that we're having that conversation in, right? Like, if you try to onboard someone at a bar, it's probably not going to work. If you try to onboard someone in an elevator, it's just not the right context. It's not the right environment to do so. So, like, being mindful of that as well helps that conversation be a lot easier. And then, in general, I think we have a lot of work to do, as a space to, like, lower the barrier there, make it easier for people to consume and be onboarded, to Web3. But yeah, just to go back to my initial point, I think, at least on our end, being art focused, starting with the art as the conversation starter and the common ground, and I think helps it makes it easier for people as an introduction, and then sort of leading them on there.
I totally agree. Art in general is the best starting point when you're pitching, like, even the broader crypto NFT world to people. Like, way better than trying to get them into a PFP project or some kind of, club or some whatever promise, right? Art is, because art holds its own value, and art is what is valuable about it. So the the benefits are so obvious. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for answering, buddy. Thank you very much for meeting me and giving me a chance to meet you and get some attention. You know how much I love that. So thank you for everything. Thanks, Amir, for putting this together.
Appreciate
By
you,
the way,
Brett.
Tara, Caden, nice to see you. Nika, nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you, Brett. Really, you're always welcome and always happy to have you. And Rob, sorry, but I cannot, I cannot decline Jennifer's request to speak. So, Jennifer, the mic is yours, please.
Oh, GM, everybody. It's so lovely to hear from Rob about, like, his story and like what he's aiming to do at Object. Actually, I had two questions for Rob, if that's okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So the first one has to do with posts that I've seen, which I very much align with in regards to pricing on
Yeah.
Tezos, and how you sort of see, obviously it's art for all. And you did mention that you don't want to swing the pendulum one way or the other. But I think it's a really valid conversation to have, because I do see art all the time on Tezos that I feel should be more appropriately priced for what it is.
Right.
And so, for anybody listening in the audience who may be a creative and want to do that, like, as far as like setting more intentional pricing, valuing their art at a higher price. What advice would you give them? How would you approach that conversation?
Yeah, that's interesting conversation because I remember during the first week I made a post about I'm all for folks pricing their work at 5 Tezos, but I'm also a big believer um, that artists should be paid for their art and that they should make enough to cover their living or beyond that. Like, I'm a big believer, of that. And I remember getting a lot of backlash for that post because people felt like I was trying to turn, the ecosystem into like Ether, BTC. That's not what I was trying to do. Essentially, I'm for artists and I'm for artists being paid and being compensated fairly for their art. Um, and so with Tezos, the great thing about it is it has a low entry barrier, right? Where you can purchase art for really great art for a low price, right? And then there's also the opposite end of the spectrum where there is art that's available at a higher price tag. So I think it all depends on the artist and where they are and what they feel comfortable with. There's no like pricing template I ask them to follow or suggest that they follow. I think they should price it how they see fit. And then if I feel like making a suggestion or if, I think that they should, consider another pricing, then I'll sort of give my input. But ultimately, I want artists to be compensated fairly for their art. There's a ton of great art on Tezos, and just like you, I feel like sometimes it should be priced, a lot higher. But there's also the misconception because it's on Tezos, maybe it should be priced lowered. Like I said, I've reached out to, numerous artists, and that's kind of like their first thought, like, should I lower, the pricing of it? And I'm like, I tell them personally, I don't think so. Like, just because I just see the chain as a medium, and so if your work is valued or you're garnering certain levels of pricing on one chain, then your pricing should be consistent on the next one. You move from one canvas to the other, that shouldn't devalue, your work. And I'm all for artists standing their ground and wanted to be compensated fairly for their work. I'm always all for that. So it's not a one size fits all.
Uh, Guys, I think that this is it. Rob, I don't want to steal any more of your time. I really appreciate you. We are really appreciate you so much for your time, for your perspectives, for your wisdom, and for your experience because it's all super valuable.
Yeah,
We,
I greatly
yeah.
appreciate you guys. I really appreciate you, extending the invite. Yeah, wanted to get to know more about me. I feel like this is probably something I should have done, when I first started at Object, but didn't necessarily come to mind then for us. But yeah, definitely appreciate you sending an invite. I appreciate everyone that, asked questions and gave feedback and added some commentary. And yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on improvements for objects, any suggestions of like community events or things that you'd like to see, any ways that we can show up, in an intentional way. It's not just about us like sponsoring an event or like putting out money. We want to show up for the community. We want to champion like people within the community that are doing things to elevate, the community and are contributing positively, and doing it in a way that's intentional, organic, genuine. So if you guys have any ideas there, like feel free to reach out. um and yeah, like I said earlier, like I personally want to see just cool shit happening, dope shit happening on object. That's really it because that's what Tezos is, like just what feels right when it feels right. And if it's cool, we want it to happen on Object. We want it to be on Tezos. And we'd love to support it.
Yeah, really. Thank you again for everything you shared. And, I strongly believe that we have to hear and share more stories, not just doing our jobs, but sharing our personal stories, sharing at least a bit of our personalities and where we came from, what we went through. It's really important and also inspiring because many people are joining this space without knowing many things, and I believe that learning through stories is the best thing, is the best option, the best way of learning. So this is why I really do appreciate your time and your perspectives. So, guys, Nico, Tara, maybe you wanted to ask something in the end before we will wrap up the space. Feel free, the mic is yours. You are even allowed to chill.
Yeah, no, I actually don't want to ask anything. No, I do not want to show anything. But I do want to thank Rob for his time. It's actually a pleasure listening to you. Yeah, I've seen you in the space since I actually joined end of 2021. But this is the first time I actually get to listen to you. And yeah, kudos for joining Object. I can imagine it was a interesting transition going from ETH to Tezos. I will admit that I've been slacking on the Tezos side. Should probably revisit that when I've got some time. But yeah, dude, listen, thanks for what you're doing for Object. It's always been the go-to to mint my little one's art on Tezos. But yeah, like I said, I should probably go and see what's going on there and mint a few pieces of guidance again on Tezos because it's been a while.
Yeah, appreciate that. And yeah, I definitely think you should. There's so much great art. I think within my first 2 weeks at Object, I spent like over 4,000 Tezos, to be honest. So when they hired me, they pretty much onboarded a new collector. And I'm at the point right now where I'm like, I need to slow down a little bit, because I've been spending so much. But I'm going to continue, doing so. Like there's just so much great art on Tezos. So and it's like very diverse too, like just artists from all over the world, from all different disciplines, talent levels. So feel free to, browse through. And if you need any help or anything, just shoot me a message.
Let's go. Tara, you have anything to add in the end? Please feel free.
Just thank Rob for his time and availability to share with us a little bit of his background and his story, and motivating us to keep believing in Tezos and the great work that he's doing on Object. For sure, it will be great for everyone. Thank you, everyone that joined us here as speakers, and all the listeners. That for sure, Amir will call you one by one at the end, as usual. Don't forget to follow ArtChains because many things are in the. How do we say it, Amir? You say it better than I do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you next week.
Tara, one alt account. We need a Tara Tezos account. It has a better ring to it.
Have Ashtara. It will fit any chain.
No, but it's not that vocal, as like Terra Tezosis or whatever.
That's pretty badass. I think Tara Tezos is pretty badass.
Terra Tezosis is way worse. So or better, I don't know. But guys, anyways, thank you really again, Rob. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Mad respect for everything you're doing for this community. Everything like you're building and sharing, and that was an incredible space. I didn't want to ask anything. I just wanted to listen, and this is the brightest mark, you know, that I can have I can set to any space. So I really appreciate you. And in the very end of the space, I really wanted to remind you. Please feel free and don't forget to follow the Art Change page here on X. Big things are coming. We're building. It's not easy and it's not as fast as we would love to, but you know we're still doing this. We're still hustling and building something. And actually, our mission is to be the shoulder for artists who are who need support. And I believe every artist need a supporting hand or a shoulder or whatever. And we're we're very open, to keep on doing this, to keep on finding new ways of funding artists, collecting art, curating, let me call it like that, curating your pieces, selecting your pieces, highlighting them, and make some exciting opportunities to, again, to spread your word, your art's word, across the globe, because we strongly believe that art is the language of peace. It's kind of one of our core beliefs here. Guys, again, thank you so much for being with us. Follow our chains, follow our posts. We're sharing a lot of opportunities for artists. And yeah, see you next Wednesday, or maybe even earlier. Who knows? And yeah, have a nice one. Thank you so much. See you soon. Have a great one. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Art Chains podcast. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and share the episode with your friends. It was me, your host, Amir, along with our amazing guests. Don't forget to listen to the ArtChains podcast on all streaming platforms. And thank you for being a creator.